Today is March 9th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, we are on Chapter 4, We Agnostics. We'll be reading page 56 today. Out of the 12 and 12, we just started Step 8 yesterday. We will be on page 78 today. And of course, we'll read the 24 hours a day and daily reflection. So with that, hope y'all are doing well this morning, my friends. Life is good over here. Nice and cold in this garage today, but I've got a warm cup of coffee, a smile on my face, and just I've been doing an inventory of how blessed I am for the people I have in my life. And well, when I do an inventory of the things that I have, instead of the things I'm missing, it changes my attitude. So again, I've got a heart of gratitude here at 3:15 in the morning, and I'm fired up. Let's get to the good stuff. All right, my friends. So if you recall from yesterday's reading, we're finally setting up the grounds for the nuts and bolts. Right, we're almost there, where we get to how it works. But we agnostics really been talking about keeping that open mind, having the willingness to trade old ideas for new, and it doesn't really jeopardize our faith necessarily to try to do these steps. If anything, it's going to bolster our faith when we do them. And finally, this chapter is going to end with an experience from a man who was once an atheist. And we set that up yesterday, so here is his story on page 56. Our friend was a minister's son. He attended church school, where he became rebellious at what he thought an overdose of religious education. For years thereafter, he was dogged by trouble and frustration. Business failure, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. These calamities in his immediate family embittered and depressed him. Post-war disillusionment, ever more serious alcoholism, impending mental and physical collapse brought him to the point of self-destruction. One night, when confined in a hospital, he was approached by an alcoholic who had known a spiritual experience. Our friend's gorge rose as he bitterly cried out, "Oh, if there's a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me." But later, alone in his room, he asked himself this question: is it possible that all the religious people I have known are wrong? While pondering the answer, he felt as though he lived in hell. Then, like a thunderbolt, a great thought came. It crowded out all else. Who are you to say there is no God? This man recounts that he tumbled out of his bed to his knees. In a few seconds, he was overwhelmed by a conviction of the presence of God. It poured over and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tide at flood. The barriers he had built through the years were swept away. He stood in the presence of infinite power and love. He stepped from bridge to shore. For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator. Out of the 12 and 12, we're on Step 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Page 78. These obstacles, however, are very real. The first, and one of the most difficult, has to do with forgiveness. The moment we ponder a twisted or broken relationship with another person, our emotions go on the defensive. To escape looking at the wrongs that we've done another, we resentfully focus on the wrongs that have been done to us. This is especially true if he has, in fact, behaved badly at all. Triumphantly, we seize upon his misbehavior as the perfect excuse for minimizing or forgetting our own. Right here, we need to fetch ourselves up sharply. It doesn't make much sense when a real tosspot calls a kettle black. Let's remember that alcoholics are not the only ones bedeviled by sick emotions. Moreover, it is usually a fact that our behavior when drinking has aggravated the defects of others. We've repeatedly strained the patience of our best friends to a snapping point, and have brought out the very worst in those who didn't think much of us to begin with. In many instances, we are really dealing with fellow sufferers, people whose woes we have increased. If we are now about to ask forgiveness for ourselves, why shouldn't we start out by forgiving them, one and all? When listening to people we have harmed, most of us hit another solid obstacle. We got a pretty severe shock when we realized that we were preparing to make a face-to-face admission of our wretched conduct to those we had hurt. It had been embarrassing enough when in confidence we had admitted these things to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. But the prospect of actually visiting or even writing to people concerned now overwhelmed us, especially when we remembered in what poor favor we stood with most of them. There were cases too when we had damaged others who were still happily unaware of being hurt. Why, we cried, shouldn't bygones be bygones? Why do we have to think of these people at all? These were some of the ways in which fear conspired with pride to hinder our making of a list of all the persons that we had harmed. "24 hours a day, March 9th. AA thought for the day. If we had absolute faith in the power of God to keep us from drinking, and if we turned our drinking problem entirely over to God without reservations, we wouldn't have to do anything more about it. We'd be free from the drink once and for all. But since our faith is apt to be weak, we have to strengthen and build up this faith. We do this in several ways. One way is by going to meetings and listening to others tell how they have found all the strength that they need to overcome drink. Is my faith being strengthened by this personal witness of other alcoholics? Meditation for the day. It is the quality of my life that determines its value. In order to judge the value of a person's life, we must set up a standard. The most valuable life is one of honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. All people's lives ought to be judged by the standard in determining their value to the world. By this standard, most of the so-called heroes of history were not great humans. What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Prayer for the day. I pray that I may be honest, pure, unselfish, and loving. I pray that I may make the quality of my life good by these standards. Daily Reflection, March 9th. Surrendering self-will. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 34. No matter how much one wishes to try, exactly how can he turn his own will and his own life over to the care of whatever God he thinks there is? In my search for the answer to this question, I became aware of the wisdom with which it is written, that it is a two-part step. I could see many times where I should have died, or at least been injured during my previous style of living, and it never happened. Someone or something was looking after me. I choose to believe my life has always been in God's care. He alone controls the number of days that I will be granted until physical death. The matter of will, self-will or God's will, is the more difficult part of the step for me. It is only when I experience enough emotional pain, through failed attempts to fix myself, that I become willing to surrender God's will for my life. Surrender is like the calm after the storm. When my will is in line with God's will for me, there is peace within. All right, my friends, that concludes today's reading and some beautiful stuff today. My goodness. First of all, the atheist story, right? That line that he asked himself, who are you to say that there is no God? That question alone humbles this man enough to realize, you know what, I don't think I'm the one in control here. And there was a point in time where I kind of, this is in my teenage years, I was really confused about this whole faith business, and I really didn't want anything to do with it. And as I've said many times, I would use the excuse of looking at other religious people that were hypocrites and closed-minded. And here I was, honestly just using that as an excuse not to believe, not to change my selfish ways. And I was being closed-minded to the idea of faith. I really was. As I was pointing the finger at them, I had 3 more pointing back at me. And then talking about self-will. As a matter of fact, pride, right? I heard that for sure in the Daily Reflection and the 12 and 12 today. Pride and fear. Like, why trudge up all these things and make a face-to-face amends to somebody who might not even know that I've done them wrong? Why do these things? And it talked about how pride and fear conspire against us to honestly be paralyzed, not to do the work. But I have noticed in my own experience, when I do these things, first of all, when I make the list of all the persons I'd harmed, I only try to think about what I've done, the part that affects my integrity, not necessarily thinking about what they've done to me. And then I pray over it, but I also talk to a trusted friend just to get that second opinion, like, hey, I'm thinking about making a direct amends in this situation, face to face if I can. What do you think? Is this a good idea or not? Get that objective second opinion, right? And sometimes my sponsor will say, yeah, I think you'll be okay to make that face-to-face amends, as long as you're only talking about the things that you've done. But I've also heard on other instances where making the face-to-face amends might not be either a good idea because it could hurt a lot of other people as well, or it might not be possible because maybe the person has passed away or moved away and there's no opportunity to make that face-to-face amend. So what can I do in that case? Indirect amends. To make sure that I don't do that to anybody else in the future. I always like what a friend of mine would do. He would, for instance, like he had lost a family member. And he decided to write that family member that passed away a letter, making his amends. And I remember he took it to their gravestone and he read it out loud to his family member. And I don't know what happened to the letter after that. But from that moment forward, he's been trying to live a life of integrity ever since, and to make sure that the harms he had done that family member, he would never do to anybody else again. I just think that's beautiful. And it humbles us, right? It really does humble us, especially when you talk to somebody face to face and you say, hey, I did this thing. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And a lot of times in my experience, not always, but most of the time in my experience, the amends are usually received very well. Or the person goes, oh, I don't even remember that situation, So all the bags of rocks that I've been carrying, once again, when I make those direct amends, I can put down and I no longer have to carry anymore. And real quick, my wife has this beautiful story. I don't know if she said she had a dream about this once or just in her mind's eye. Anytime she wants to give something over to her higher power, in her mind's eye, she's on this beach and she's got this box of whatever it is that she's been wrestling with in her hands. She meets her higher power, who we both call Jesus. No words are spoken, but she gives the box over to him. He takes it and smiles and walks away. I just think that's a beautiful image right there. Brings tears to my eyes, that we don't have to carry this stuff anymore. And these steps have been a vehicle for me to be able to do this in a very practical way. For me, it's been God for Dummies. But anyway, my friend, I've rambled on enough. If you are sober today, I hope you know that you're a miracle and you are giving a great gift to those around you. You have a unique superpower to help the next suffering alcoholic, and they're dying by the thousands out there. We can help in a way that nobody else can. It's a beautiful thing, and yet it helps us. And if you are not sober, my friend, I hope you know that you're a miracle as well, and you have great worth, and you're worthy of recovery. Your story is not done yet. I'm still thinking about Chrissy's story a few weeks ago. Being on the streets, struggling to survive, and a hand reached out to help her. And eventually she did the work. And now she's sober. Her story out in the streets wasn't done yet. And your story's not done yet. So I pray that you get the help that you need today. And you don't have to do it alone. This is a we program. And finally, my friend, I don't speak on behalf of AA, NA, Al-Anon, any other sect. I am not a professional narrator. Lord knows that. I am just a joyful drunk, honored to be here this morning. And if we were given another set of 24 hours, I sincerely look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow.